She owns an MMA gym now.
Yeah.
So I actually I went up there this morning, chatted with her.
Excellent. You thinking about grappling there?
Yeah, getting into some jiu-jitsu and stuff. I haven't rolled since I've been here yet, so I need to start working on that.
So man, time flies, brother. I was looking at when you first came on the show, it was February.
Yeah.
It's already almost June, so that's already almost 4 months. And in the last 4 months, almost 15 and a half weeks, your life has changed pretty drastically, which is crazy and awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've done a lot of stuff. So I decided I didn't want to be in law enforcement. Well, I think I'd already decided that first time we talked, but I hadn't really made any definitive plans to move on yet.
Yeah.
But after our conversation, that kind of sparked a little motivation in me, I guess, and I made some plans and developed the human equation and got that going. So I got the online version of that going. I got the podcast going, and now I'm just working on the brick and mortar wellness center. So
that's awesome, man. And you're based out of Yuma?
Yeah, Yuma, Arizona.
Yeah. So did you decide, Joey, that you're going to stay there? Because I know it was going back and forth if you were going to actually move up and go to San Diego or just keep base camp in Yuma. Did you decide on that?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stay here for the time being. People here are cool. There's a market for what I'm trying to do. I already have some connections established here as opposed to San Diego where I'd be starting anew.
Yeah.
And the weather here is awesome. It's always sunny. So
Good, man.
I believe it's the clearest skies in the U.S.
Down in Yuma.
Yeah.
Man, it's really important. It's cool that, looking back and reflecting on some of my decisions when I was, making big life changes like moving or career changes, it's really important to not burn bridges, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like, I think when I was younger, and I'm not proud to say a lot of the stuff I did when I was younger, but there were times where I would leave jobs or even leave relationships with a lot of loose ends, almost like just kind of not even worrying about future relationships with these people. And that's not the right way to do things. And like hearing you just brought that up in my head when you said that you lived there before and you already had prior connections from the first time you lived there. You leave for a few years, you come back, and these people are still in your life. Talk about the importance of that, not burning bridges, and also building healthy relationships.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people mistake their social wellness as people that maybe have common interests or something, but I think just being one with everybody and knowing that we're all human beings and we're all similar, and even though if you're on a different path and you can't hang out with somebody at the time being, that doesn't make them any less of a person, doesn't make them any more important to you. Like you always say, you want the best for people, so I think you always want the best for people. So for a long time, I think whenever I go to leave a situation, I like to at least keep in touch with the people as much as possible, or let them know I'll still be thinking about them. I tend to have difficulty keeping in touch with people. I just get so busy sometimes. I need to be better with that. I know that. But I think the important thing is, though, I think just trying to treat people like you want them to treat you. So I mean, everybody has dreams and goals, and people are going to come in and out of your life, but just knowing that they're important, and that even though they're not presently with you physically, they're still there spiritually. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Talk about how in the last 5 weeks, maybe since you left Youngstown and you changed careers. Talk about maybe has your mind has your thought processes changed in any specific area? Maybe creativity, accomplishment, goals. And then if your thought processes have changed in those specific areas, do you think that they're related to you picking everything up and leaving?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So I would say my goals have more intention behind them. I actually am I'm looking at an end state that's not just like a tertiary goal that I established as something I want to achieve, but
Yeah.
now all of my goals are fitting in with my plan of who I actually want to be and where I want to get to and how I want to develop as an individual. So, yeah, a lot of that stuff has changed. Between being in the military and law enforcement, which they're both honorable professions, they're both difficult in different ways. Um, but between being in both those fields, I don't want to say I lost myself, but I had a lot of regression. So back when I was a therapist, I had a lot of introspection to myself, and I held myself more accountable. I held myself more accountable as like being a good person. Not that I wasn't a good person as a police officer or army officer, but I never even thought about it. You know, so much of my time was spent at work and just focusing on work related tasks and doing things that were kind of meaningless to me a lot of times. And I got away from journaling. I never meditated at all. I didn't do yoga at all. I stayed in shape physically, but mentally, I think I didn't take care of myself at all. And stepping back and seeing that when I finally made that decision to leave, I've really changed a lot of my habits. So I've done yoga every day for the past 5 months or so now. I meditate between 20 and 30 minutes every single day, at least. Um, and I'm actually writing stuff down in a journal. I'm making action plans. I'm far more goal oriented. I have steps, and then I have uh, like an end state that's actually defined. And so I think a lot of people, when you get caught in your profession, you don't have that work-life balance. You can really get caught up into doing stuff that's not who you are and actually can take you further from your goals.
Man, you have no idea how good that makes me feel. Me hearing you say that, but also me watching you right now, listening to your voice tonality, the inflection. Everybody watching or listening to this could go back to episode 140 when you were first on my podcast back in February, and listen, because dude, it's evident. I've known you since you were like a teenager, and
Yeah.
I and we hadn't spoken roughly 10 years, and then we reconnected in February, and I thought that, and that's who you would become, but your voice had changed. I didn't want to bring that up. You just seemed a little more, I mean, just not with it, kind of emotionally. Like you just seemed kind of going through the motions. And you came out to Australia, you stayed with me, you were slightly different. And then now, and then when you interviewed me last week on your show, and then now, man, seeing you smiling, and I see that this is the kid that I knew when we were younger, dude. I'm excited for you, man. I really want to tell you that.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. It was
It's cool. It's cool, man. It's man. I was thinking, shit, man. Did the military, did life, did Youngstown, did the police force really do this to this kid? Because you always you didn't stop smiling, but your tonality, like the inflection in your words, were just kind of different. If that
yeah.
makes sense, man. And hearing you go through this change and seeing you brighter, your energy is vibrant. It's awesome, man. Like it's good to see.
Yeah, no, it feels better. I think a lot of times with those professions, you kind of have to be that way, though. You almost
Yeah.
robotic. It's not something where you don't really want people to see who you are when you're doing those two roles. You almost have to put on a persona, and then I think that persona carries on into your life, and you don't really see it. And when you're doing stuff, you kind of keep that front up. So yeah.
Yeah, the Kara, she works at the gym down here in Sydney where I work, and she does CrossFit. She was talking to me last week about how she follows your page and she really likes when you write. She was like, I love when he posts and I like the way he writes. And I put that in my notes because, man, you are a good writer, and I wanted to give you that feedback. And then hearing you say that you're journaling again, and it's like anything else, Joe. Even when you recorded your first episode of the Human Equation, we were talking back and forth, trying to brainstorm. It's like anything else, like that, like writing. The more we do it, the more who we are comes into it, comes out of it, and we get better, we get comfortable at it. Are you finding um, positives in writing more and in speaking more? in your own personality? Do you think that there's definitely positives in doing that in the creating side of things?
Yeah, definitely, man. So you know me well, and I've never been one to really want to be out in front of people. Always behind the scenes. I like being behind the scenes. Um, Never really talk much. Always let my actions speak louder than my words. And on my last episode of Human Equation, I was talking to my friend Nick, and he was saying that when he came to my CrossFit gym that I owned, that was something that he always liked, was that I led by example, and that everybody there kind of adopted what I was doing as a way to better themselves and for them to kind of get into a routine and everything. And I said to him, it's really weird that I have a podcast, because that's not something I ever did. Like even owning the gym, I didn't get out there and talk a lot. I just have always done stuff through action. So yeah, I think getting on and actually talking, it was really nerve-wracking at first. Not nerve-wracking, but I just felt very awkward because I had never done it. So getting to the position to where now I actually feel comfortable doing it, and between that and journaling, the journaling, I can't speak enough about that. I mean, if anybody's listening to this and you're not journaling yet, journal. It'll help. I promise you.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be a pen in hand journal, which works for some people, which I do as well. It could be your phone that you have it all the time, the note app. It could be voice journaling. It's basically an expression of what we're keeping all up in here. It could be emotions, it could be ideas, it could be sadness, it could be happiness. But we have to look at this like head of ours as needing refiltering, like a well with water in it. If that well never gets refilled and gets new water coming through, it's just going to get stagnant.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it could be even something as simple if you're really creative, like writing using, pictures, almost like a vision board, but you can use it as a journal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. You've been doing that? Have you done that, like with the pictures?
No, I don't do that personally, but
Yeah. Have you done one?
I've never done one. No.
In 2012, because my first podcast was called the Vision Board podcast when I started in Australia, but it was relating to, in 2012 I was living in Las Vegas, and I had just finished this last segment of leadership and personal development grad school, and one of the tasks was to do a vision board. And while I was doing it, I realized that at 28, 29 years old, where I was, I didn't have a passport. I hadn't worked out in a health club in a half of a decade. I hadn't done anything outside to test myself. And for me, it was kind of like, I don't want to say a slap in the face, but it was showcasing who I am internally and what I wasn't living up to. So it's a great, for anyone out there, it's a task that you don't have to share it with anyone. I did it with the girl I was dating at the time, and it was really cool to bond, to kind of see where her head was and where mine was. And I recommend doing a vision board to anybody who feels that they need to, maybe they feel stuck.
Yeah. Or they just kind of don't know. They don't really know who they want to be or where they want to be. That's a good thing, that at least shows you kind of an end state where you want to be at, to start filling in some gaps.
Yeah, when you posted episode 3 on your show, which I'll put all the links, guys, listen to this, to follow Joey and listen to his podcast, doing great work on the iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. But there was I reshared our episode, and there was a woman that, she wasn't following me, but she was from Northeast Ohio, and she had commented on the post that I had written about, you and I growing up in the 80s and 90s in Northeast Ohio, and the adversities that we were faced with. And then her post was, her name was Marie Klein. Her post was so insightful. She was older than us, and that was the exact reason why I told you to start one, because even if one person or 1,000 or 1,000,000 tune in, it's a way to kind of connect people on a positive scale and talk about these things that some of us feel that maybe they don't. Oh, that's not important. Nobody wants to talk about that, or who's going to listen? But through conversation, we create the narrative of kind of community.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of times, probably the biggest thing that I've ever neglected in my life is social relationships. So, like when I was on your show the first time, we were talking about how you used to get out there and have a big group, and mine was always so small. And I think just recently I realized how important it is to network and get out and talk to people and get some other perspectives and not be tied into a small mindset. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I have a couple words written down. I'm going to just say one word, and I want to hear whatever comes to mind, all right? Because
Sure.
I did it with myself, brainstorming. I actually use this as an exercise to free write. Like, if I'm struggling with concepts to talk about on my show when I don't have guests, I'll do a free writing task and see what comes to mind. So the first one I'm just going to say the word success. And what is it to you?
You know, just one word or definition?
Definition. You hear the word success. What does it mean to you?
Uh, for me, which the whole reason I created the human equation is calculating your life, what you want it to be, and then actively pursuing that indefinitely throughout your lifespan, pursuing it to refine it, make it better, and trying to achieve whatever it is that you set out for. That's success.
What does failure mean to you?
Uh, uh, Nothing. There is no failure. Failure is just a lesson, man. So I think a lot of people get so hung up on thinking that if they fail at something or they're not good at something, uh, it could be catastrophic, but it's just a learning experience. I mean, if I saw an analogy about this a long time ago. If every baby gave up the first time they couldn't walk, nobody would be walking. We'd all still be crawling or scooting around our bellies, right? So
Yeah.
the most important thing is you just pick yourself back up from a failure and you learn from it and you apply it to your future endeavors.
How about fear?
Fear, yeah, that's probably one of the most debilitating social constructs. So, what is that? What's the anagram for that? False evidence appearing real.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, that's what it is. You know, most things that people are scared of really don't have any actual consequences to them, which is really strange to me.
Yeah, these are three words. I picked those three words to talk to you about because we grew up in the same hometown. And those were three words that held me back for almost like a decade. Because success, in my opinion, was given to people, which we all know that's bullshit. It's not, no one gives anyone anything. It's people work for it. Failure,
Right.
failure for me was regrets, everything. And now I know that failure is not real. We create that. And the same thing with fear. Fear is an excuse. Fear,
Yeah.
fear is an excuse and an anchor to keep people base level. I think because the real root is not wanting to be vulnerable. I think we struggle with vulnerability in our culture, especially I don't like being divisive and drawing lines about gender or ethnicity or where we come from, but I see it a lot in the people that follow me, especially the guys I grew up with that were kind of like, from Youngstown. I have my really good friends that we talk a lot. And then
Yeah.
you have those other guys that you might have played ball with that are still following you, but you weren't really close with them. And on social media, I see that failure side of things, that fear side of things, they still haven't figured that equation out of understanding that these markers we put on our potential, on what we're doing to achieve happiness, we put these things on ourselves because we don't want to be vulnerable.
Right.
I think it's a very toxic place to be.
That is very toxic. If you're more scared of the unknown than being miserable in comfort, that's a sad place to be.
Man, how are you finding how are you finding the creative side of things, running a podcast and creating a brand from scratch regarding the social media content, the creating of the marketing of the episode titles, creating of posts on Instagram? It's a tough task, but talk about kind of the pros and cons of that side of the ball game. Because right now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I still promote my show as a one-man passion project. So
Yeah.
guys like us, we're doing all of that. A lot of the unseen or unspoken about tasks of running an online brand, running a podcast, editing, recording, all that goes into play, the creating of the content. Talk about that for us.
Well, the biggest thing is it's a huge learning experience. So I'm learning all of this from scratch, and I never was big into social media. I mean, I might only post 5 things a whole year prior to starting Human Equation. So it's been challenging but rewarding at the same time. So creativity wise, it really does help you develop some creativity because there's a lot of aspects to it that aren't things you can just kind of look up and copy and paste. You really have to put your spin on it and your take on it, and you have to develop what it is that you're trying to say. So you can't just really take what somebody else is saying. You have to kind of have your own sphere of, I don't want to say influence, but sphere of like a knowledge based where you're at, and then you're kind of branching out from that. So it's been a challenge. Yeah, I can't say it's been easy, but it's been fun.
Yeah, it's definitely not easy, and it's the advice I've given you is the same advice to anyone listening to this, is the importance of not comparing what you're doing to other people, especially comparing what you're doing to maybe a podcast, like somebody who's getting 1 million downloads, because one of my favorite quotes is comparison is the thief of joy. We can't compare our our outcomes to people because our intentions are going to be different. Like as long as you know your intentions clear, those are clear as day, what you want to be achieving with your voice, you want to be helping people, you want to impact people. That's all that matters. If one person, 10 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people will tune in, that's all cherry on the top. I think it's more about the intention of why we're living, why we live what we do, and then the outcomes will speak for themselves if you're properly aligned with all that you're doing. You can't be like speaking one narrative and then going out and doing the opposite. Everything has to be congruent. I think the more
right.
the more we tell ourselves that, you want to create like an impenetrable force field around the voice. So like in comparing it to other people, it's just not a healthy way to do things. So I always tell younger people and whoever's new to it, don't do that.
Yeah, I really like how you're saying with the intention, because I guess if your intention is to find 1 million people, well, you're going to be probably disappointed, right?
Yeah. And then if that is your intention, you need to ask yourself why. Why do you?
Right.
And that's how you get to the real root of the intention.
So my intention behind it is there's a lot of stuff that I either didn't know from the years, I learned as I went. There's a lot of stuff that I knew and didn't stay cognizant of, like I was saying, when I went into the military and law enforcement, and just really neglected a lot of my wellness. There are people out there I think would benefit from hearing it. Even someone like me that's really knowledgeable on that stuff, and having been a therapist and having a firm grasp on psychology, and I let myself get to that point. So I know there's other people who either don't know or aren't aware of it. And just listening to something like this, where I could have heard somebody say, hey, there's 8 domains of wellness. It's not just your physical performance. That to me would have been helpful.
Talk about some of those now. Share with us some of the, because that's the content that you put up that I'm most compelled to research more and more. Like when you do post the graphs of the matrix of wellness, and like you said, the eight domains. Kind of share with us some of those.
Yeah, so you have all these different domains of wellness, and there's overlap between them, obviously. So some people have different models. I've seen a 5, 6, 7, a 3. I like the 8 domains though. So you have like occupational and financial. So your occupational stuff is, are you challenged at work? Are you actually gratified? Are you just there for a check? And so if you're there for a check, what should be your goal is to get into an occupation where you're not just there for a check, So, which kind of overlaps into your financial domain. So your financial domain, you're talking about, do you have enough money to meet your necessities? Do you have enough money to have the quality of life or to reach your goals that you need in that sense? You have like your spiritual well-being, Are you connected to the world? Do you actually feel like you have a purpose here, which can kind of branch back over into your occupational, because you can branch it in. You have intellectual wellness. So are you mentally stimulated and challenged? Are you seeking out lifelong learning experiences? If you're sitting there, and I just posted something the other day, uh, when's the last time you learned something new? I mean, if you haven't learned something new in 10 years, you are absolutely neglecting your wellness. Um, and then we have emotional wellness. Are you able to cope with things that are maybe negative, positive, uh, letdowns, setbacks? How do you deal with that stuff? Do you have good coping mechanisms? Do you have a support structure, which now takes you into the social domain? So your social domains, who's your sphere of influence? Who are the people you're spending your time with? Are they people that want to hold you back and don't want you to succeed because it's going to make them look bad? Or is it people that are trying to propel you forward and push you forward and are there to support you? Which then can kind of take you into your environmental domain. Have you put yourself in a place where you can actually meet your goals and succeed? Or, Youngstown's a good example. Are you just staying there because you know people there, and that's not really the environment for you to thrive in? So my business probably wouldn't thrive there. There's just not as much of a market for it. And my lifestyle, can you live the lifestyle you want too? So, I mean, if you can't have all of the lifestyle benefits that you want, then you're not stuck there. You're not a tree. You can get up and go somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? I probably missed one. Let me think for a second here. Yeah, I don't know.
No, that's
I
good.
kind of went out of order. So,
Well, I mean, you just highlighted a lot of key points of how deep the individual we must go when we're thinking or we're talking about are we well. I read because I mean a lot of us won't go that deep. Um, I was writing notes about a thing I'm working on the side, and the note all it says is what makes us well, and it's question mark, and then I'm just filling in the gaps of what does make us well, or also what makes us unwell. And I think that not going there mentally, like the social side of things, but I'm really intrigued when you brought up about the you were talking social, spiritual, the wellness. Where does impulse behavior, addiction, repeating the same mistakes, like repeating patterns of behavior that don't suit us or serve us, where does that fall into place?
well, it could fall into different things. So, what is you almost have to look at what's the motivation behind it. It could be a physical dependence. You need it to feel okay. So that would be physical domain. It could be a mental domain where you've tricked yourself into needing it. That's become your coping mechanism for whatever triggers you have. You know what I'm saying? Um, it could be a spiritual thing. You're using a substance as a, a way to kind of find meaning in situations. Um, could be emotional. Yeah, there's just so many ways. I mean, it almost can tie into any of them. I mean, your occupation could cause stress on you, which then that becomes your emotional way of dealing with the stress. So, you know what I'm saying? It's all encompassing. They all fit together. So I'd say any single one of those things could impact that. But as far as addiction and repeating the same behaviors, I mean, it could be intellectual. You don't have the knowledge base where you can see that it's doing that. Um, or you could just have like a lack of uh, emotional control. So it's just become your comfort zone. That's just what you do.
All right, let's role play then. We're gonna role play with you being you now, your knowledge, your body of work, in me 10 years ago. Because last night I did a post about when I was 27, because I turned 37 recently, and I talked about a lot of the things that held me back as a 27-year-old, and I feel that there's a lot of guys and girls out there that could use the knowledge basically from hearing the story and then also hearing the advice that you would have to give, because it took me a lot of. So the thing was, my 20s were spent was California, Las
Right.
Vegas. And the patterns of behaviors, when I say addiction, I wasn't physically addicted. It wasn't like a drug that I'd wake up and have the shakes, but the addictions would be going out at night, alcohol, trying to hook up with women, chaos. Nothing was suited around developing myself because the root was all around my unfulfillment with not knowing how to suit myself. I didn't
Yeah.
have I didn't have a path or a mentor. I didn't have guidance or a trajectory of even ideas of who I could become. So I knew though that I wanted that there was something in me to become this person.
Right.
I didn't have a roadmap. I didn't know that equation. So I
Right.
know that I got a lot of messages from that post that I put last night, and it was about this and how at 37, 100% I feel, move, live way better than I ever have. And guys were messaging me and I grew up with. What would you tell them if they still haven't
Man,
figured it? If they still haven't figured it out yet, how would they start?
I would say the biggest thing they need to do is either have some conversations with themselves or try to find try to find somebody that is in a situation that you want to be in, and maybe try to spark a conversation with them, because it really is hard on your own to kind of develop that stuff if you've never done it. I mean, everybody needs help now and again, um, just reach out and find someone. I mean, there's so many people, whether it's a life coach, a wellness coach, a health coach, a friend, a mentor, um, maybe even somebody in your family. I mean, everybody has to have somebody around that they see on a maybe not even a regular basis, but a semi-regular basis, that is living in a way that they kind of wish that they could. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
So approach that person. A lot of people aren't as I've come to find out, because I've been somebody that would never approach people or ask people for things, and I wanted to do everything myself. And I use it as a badge of honor that I always did everything myself without help. Um, Now that I've gone out and networked, people are far more friendly and far more willing to give you part of them than you would expect. So,
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. It's one of the major lessons that I learned from going to grad school was it's okay to ask for help. I think that coming from a tough, gritty town like you and I come from, and like there are all throughout the world, when we're growing up and we're maturing and we're adolescents, and then we become young adults, it is a badge of honor. I can relate to that. Like, I don't need to meet new people. I have my own friends. I don't need to learn anything. I can't be. I think the root of that's vulnerability again, though. We're afraid to be vulnerable. We're afraid to show chinks in our armor. But through the inquisition of knowledge, that's how we grow.
yeah, absolutely. And it's not really vulnerability once you can get past seeing that. I mean, having a conversation with someone is just getting to know somebody, and you never know. There's probably a lot of people out there that have so many similar beliefs and opinions, and you could share part of your life with them and do things that are constructive instead of sticking with people that have some destructive, negative habits that are just kind of pulling you down, and you get stuck in that routine with them. Like you're saying, you used to go out a lot. A lot of that stuff is like social, and I think a lot of people don't really learn how to make meaningful friendships, and a lot of people don't want to tell people no because they don't want to look like a bad guy, or they don't want to look like a jerk or something. But I mean, tell people no, I don't want to go out to the bar. I don't really go out to the bar, you know?
No, it's telling people no, not it. Man, the lack of fulfillment. I mean, how many people do you know who are goal oriented, task oriented, day to day, that are trying to fill that void with going out? There aren't a lot. The successful people I know, and guys, fill in the blank of success. When I talk success, I don't mean cars, mansions, millions. I mean fulfillment. So the people that I know who are fulfilled, or at least working towards that culmination component of life, they're not going out to bars. They're not.
Yeah.
They're not on apps. They're not trying to hook up with randoms. They're not lying to they're not lying to their friends. It's almost it's almost like the secret is creating the network of people. Like, if once we're conscious about the positive impact people will have on us. I think people come into our lives at different times, and then it's up to like that social intelligence or that, you know, ability to or know who to keep. And it's tough, man. It's not an easy
Yeah.
thing. It's not like a simple thing you could read in a book and be, oh, I got it figured out. It's a
Yeah.
constant, it's a constant thing.
Well, and as your past continue to grow, I mean, it might take you apart, you know, but
Mm.
it doesn't mean you care about that person any less. You could still love that person, but you just can't share as much time with them because they have their goals and you have yours. And when you do so, it makes the time more meaningful, you know.
Have you noticed? I've noticed since I moved to a different continent, basically in a different dimension, Australia. I've actually, I've actually gotten closer with people that I grew up with. I see my family once a year. When I lived in Vegas and LA, that wasn't the case. I reconnected with people like you, and I'm closer with
Yeah.
my core group of people. Have you noticed in your? I mean, it's only been maybe a month or so, but the impact that the people who know you back home, the impact that you've had on them, and now the impact you have on them now. Have you noticed a difference in that?
Not a major impact. The funny thing is people that I haven't talked to a long time when I started doing this have kind of reached out to me and asked me some questions and stuff.
That's what I
And
mean.
yeah, I think that's awesome. But like you said on my podcast, most people don't really know me well. Most people see a persona, and it's usually like this tough, gritty, maybe even uncaring guy, which isn't even close to what I am. I mean, I've always been quiet, so I guess I was slightly closed off to people.
Mm.
But I'm the kind of person that would do anything to help somebody that asked me, as long as, you know, I think they would be willing to do the same. So yeah, I really implore people to reach out to me and ask me anything. I'm I'm uh I'm always willing to help somebody as much as I can.
Yeah, I've noticed since I listened to the when you had D Riv on. Was that your
Yeah,
second episode?
second, yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of like followed him again. Just staying in contact on Facebook. And the reason why I asked the previous question is because I think maybe it's just timing. He looks happier. Like
Yeah.
he's. I know life throws us screwballs, and there's a lot of things that happen, a lot of different variables. But I'm predicting that because you guys are really close. That's
Yeah.
that's kind of an example of what you talked about when you own the gym and how I think maybe you're an extroverted introvert because you don't want to be front row to a concert, but you probably you probably are more comfortable having the mic in your hand on stage. But if you are in the crowd, you might have to be all the way in the back so nobody sees you. So like leading through actions from afar, like, you know, I think is important. We don't talk about that enough as friends and as people, that if you do have people in your life that fill in the blank of whatever success is, but or at least their intentions are positive and wanting to progress, wanting to help people, wanting to develop, I think there's no way of denying that as a friend of those people. Like you have to either love that. And then if you are out there watching this and you do have friends like that and that bothers you or that annoys you, you have to check your ego because if these people were really your friends, you'd want them to keep progressing. You want to be around people who keep progressing and keep learning.
Yeah. I think there's no need to be jealous of somebody. You should be happy for people that reach success and know that if they can do it, so can you. So
Yep.
they're just the example. The only thing that's limiting a person is their perceptions of situations and their inaction. So if you have negative perception of the situation, did you see the thing I posted the other day about that diamond? It had the thought, feeling, action, goal.
The it was almost like an infograph. It was the
Yeah,
yeah.
and I think that carries over with how your perception is with people. If you think that somebody who's going out and being successful is negative, you're going to feel negatively towards them, and you're also going to feel negatively towards what they're doing, which is when you have those negative feelings, then your actions are going to mesh up with that, and you're going to almost do things to sabotage yourself, you know?
Mm.
And
Yeah,
that's going to lead you away
it's
from goals.
yeah, it's like developing that rope or that anchor, that invisible kind of unit of force that will pull you back in. It's almost like a beam of consciousness. It starts with like we are going to get off, like, we're not perfect as people. You're going to make mistakes, you're going to upset people, but the importance is being able to come back to that track, being able to like sway off a bit, but understand that my intentions are here, my goals are here. The only way for me to accomplish these things, I have to go back this way. And it takes discipline. And once again, it's not easy. I put up a podcast. My last podcast is this gentleman named Craig, and I interviewed him. The interview was from like 2 years ago, but I save a lot. I didn't post it before. And so as I was cutting it up and editing it, I realized that 2 years ago, he was helping me brainstorm on the podcast about writing books, about how to write a book. So I ended up writing the book, and it made me want to do this with you. Like, he gave me basically a system to do something that I was subconsciously already inquiring about 2 years ago, but I didn't think that I could do it. And then he said in one statement, he said, "Oh, if you can't put your thoughts to pen, but you have the thoughts, voice them." And I go, "What do you mean voice?" He was like, "Just record your voice." And then that's how I did mine. But with the human equation, you and I brainstorm all the time, in Messenger. I was thinking about with what you're doing, you have the human equation's the brand, it's your show, but then as you talk about the pillars or the pyramid, the emotions, you could do like the happiness equation. You could do and the happiness equation might just be an online course of like the emotional side of things. And then you could do the physical equation, or, whatever it may be, or you pick the words, but happiness equation for some reason popped up into my head, and I wanted to share that with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah,
that's excellent. But I think you're right. Yeah. So the human equation is your all-encompassing thing, and then there's all those little segments that get you to that point too. So
yeah, people don't want, man, we have to want to work for it though. Like, it's hard for me to remember a morning when I used to wake up and not want to wake up. Like, it's hard. I have a client, right? And I won't say his name just due to, anonymity, but it's actually the client that I started coaching when you were actually staying with me in Sydney, and you helped me with that first introductory session. So, for about 2 months in, everything's going well.
Good.
And the thing about it is, wanting to work for, I was giving him advice on what I do. I have a really good, in terms of not getting off the beaten path of like when the impulse comes into my mind of wanting to go out and wanting to party, I have a really inept ability of being able to sit with the result of that. Like, if I want to go out with, and act stupid, I'll then sit with myself and feel how I feel the morning after. I could go into that dark place and not actually be doing it. And that's enough for me not to sway off the beaten path per se. Of like, sitting with the hangover or sitting with the regret or sitting with the depression. And so for me, because I've done it so many times in my past, I can now use those moments as positivity to keep me aligned. And when I told him that, he was like, he was pretty impressed or just kind of shocked by that people do that. Is there a term for that? What would you call that?
Maybe just some, I don't know, insightful awareness or something.
That's what works for me, though. I'm sure if you don't have many, I just have a lot of crazy chaos in my past that I pull from. I'm able to use, but like, I don't want to feel like death tomorrow. I'm not going to do it.
No, it makes sense. I mean, you're already aware of how you're going to feel, and you cut it off before you get there. I think that's really important. Is if you're taking like long periods of time too. So that kind of gets me into something else I wanted to say, with like journaling and meditation. If you're putting that off to where you're only doing it once a week or once every other week or once every 3 weeks, and you're not actively charting your progress along the way. It's really easy for one step to become 2, to become 5, to become 7, to become 15. And now you're 15 steps back away from your goal instead of towards it. Whereas when I use that every night, it holds me accountable every single night if I either did what I needed to do to get closer to where I wanted to be, or if I didn't, you know? And I think with you, the same way, using that insightful, I don't know if you meditate when you do it, or if maybe in the float tank or something, but even if you're just daydreaming, I mean, that's kind of a form of meditation, you know what I'm saying? But visualizing that every single night, not just with, like a negative, impactful behaviors going out, but also with the behavior of not making your bed in the morning. Not making your bed could be at one time, could be something that starts to lead to a negative pattern of behavior, which can get out of control. You know what I'm saying?
It's so, man, I tell my clients that when I first start coaching them, the ones who hire me for fitness, is I use that because I do it, and it's been so impactful for me. And I've never framed it the way you just framed it, which I like, but it's the same concept. It's like the first thing I do when I leave my house is my bed's made, my room is made, because I know no matter how good my day is or no matter how bad my day is, when I come back to my bedroom to lay down, it's in place. It's not chaotic. And for me, the type of learner I am and the type of person I am, that works for me. It's almost like a realignment. And I'll never, even if I'm in a hotel room, I'm not going to leave my bed unmade. I'm going to leave it sorted.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good strategy. I think a lot of people get on, I hate to use the term the slippery slope, but they get on to the slippery slope to where they think, I'm just going to let this one thing skate and it's not a big deal. And I'm going to then it's 2 things, and it's 3 things, and it's 4 things. And they're back to where they started, they slid right back down the hill. Whereas opposed, if every time, no matter if you want to do it or not, do it. Just do it. How long does it take to make a bed? Less than 2 minutes, probably. It's not long. So, and that 2 minutes keeps you on pace to set the rest of your day. It's the first thing you're doing in the morning. And now you are on pace that, okay, I did this first thing I didn't want to do. I got it out of the way. And now let's move on to the next thing. I'm going to start attacking everything. I'm attacking today.
It's so true, man. It's something that, the book of 5 rings, by Musashi, the one that you've read recently, the one I always talk about. Like, I reference that book not because I want to hurt people. I want to be a samurai and be a physical destroyer of consciousness. I like the samurai approach, though, of the discipline, the self-discipline of doing the things that the average person won't do. I was recently researching the positive benefits of taking cold showers every day. I had done a podcast on it, so I was studying the science behind it. And there's a lot of science behind it about mood elevation, the excrement of dead cells, circulation, what that does for our cognition, rest, all of these benefits. And I had always done the cold showers, not because I knew the science, but because I knew how bad it sucked. Like, a lot of people don't want to do cold showers because it's uncomfortable. That's why I do. That's why I do that. That's one element of it. The making in the bed, not being lazy, the working out, the wellness side of things. That all of those things now become who we are. We become our habits. It's not that It's not that we're already something. Wherever state we're at right now, you and I, it's only because our habits led us here. And I'm glad that we're doing this with, in good spots, both of us. And I hope everyone listening to this could get to a great spot, for their life, because that's what we want to do as people. We want to all be in a good spot. You don't want to root for people to not be. But if you're not, it's strictly related to the small little habits. We're not who we are because we're born this way. We're who we are because every little decision that we make, that's what makes who we are. And we can change that if we need to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're completely in control of your destiny. Everything that happened in the past is in the past. You can't change it. But everything that happens from this moment forward, I'm in control of. And if I choose right now, this very second, to be on a different trajectory, I can start that trajectory and do it. There's nothing stopping me except my own mind.
Dude, and that's what makes it fun. And there's a lot of teachers out there, that guys listening that are out there. You got to find them. Like Alan Watts was a huge one for me that I still listen to, He's been dead for decades, but he talks about life is play. And another one, Joseph Campbell, is a guy that have you read much of Campbell?
No, I haven't.
He's the guy who coined "be the hero of your own story." That a lot,
Okay.
Rogan has kind of like adopted that. A lot of people, give credit to Joe for that. But that was Campbell, and then he also says one. My favorite Joseph Campbell quote, but there's a lot of them, is the cave you fear to enter holds the truth that you seek. And for me, man, it was we have these things in our back consciousness that maybe we still need to do, or we haven't connected the dots with it yet. We're leaving things unfinished. We're leaving emotions unserved. Go there. Like go to that emotional place. Go to that physical place. Tie these ends up so you could be, on a path. But a lot of us don't want to go there, man. Like we live in this state of almost uncomfortable. We're uncomfortable being uncomfortable. We're comfortable being uncomfortable emotionally.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people don't want to talk about emotions or don't want to deal with them. They just want to cast them off to the side and find some escape from them a lot of times. And that's I don't think that's healthy. It's not productive, and it's going to impede you in reaching whatever you want. Even if you do, let's say I'm not very materialistic, but if you were a materialistic person, you have materialistic goals, once you achieve them, you're still going to be unfulfilled because you haven't gotten wellness in the emotional state. So you're always going to be seeking more or something different, and nothing's going to appease you because you need to confront those problems. You need to confront it, definitely.
Yeah, confrontation, man. The confrontation equation. So time flies, man. I love that we're doing this again. I want to run a couple more words by you before I let you go. First thing that comes to mind, all right? Now,
all right.
Mental health.
Oh man, mental health is just your ability to control not only your emotions but your thought processes. So trying to stabilize those two things. So positive mental health is being able to stabilize how you're feeling with what you're thinking, and then that'll lead to positive action. And on the opposite side of that, negative mental health is where you can't balance those two things and you're letting one control the other. So your negative thoughts are making you feel bad, or the way that you feel is making you think bad.
Personal development.
Constant growth. I mean, just developing yourself into that person you want to be. If if you have a goal, you should be trying to achieve it. That's personal development, and setting reasonable, realistic steps to get to your goal.
Positive circle of influence.
Man, just the people that you're surrounding yourselves with that are there to support you even when you're doubting yourself. They're there to help you brainstorm ideas. They're there to help you grow as a person, and they're people that want to see you succeed.
Excellent, man. The one last thing before I let you go. So you got the human equation we've come up with. You got the happiness equation, and I'm going to give you another one because it's in my notes. So I'm gonna ask you. I want you to define success. What does success mean to you personally? But that's the next pillar, the success equation. What's the success equation to you?
Man, for me, it's getting this center open, getting some people inside of there, and hopefully creating my own positive circle of influence to where they can become positive pillars and circles of influence to people within their circle, and just growing it exponentially. I mean, I want to see everybody be healthy and happy and well balanced.
Attaboy. And how could the people watching and listening to this, how could they stay connected with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook. My personal Facebook's Joe Ombrello, Ombrello. My business page is The Human Equation, equation spelled EQ8Ion. On Instagram at Joe Ombrello or at The Human Equation. You can check out my website, www.thehumanequation.com, or hit me up on my Gmail email address, which is thehumanequation@gmail.com.
Attaboy. I'll put all those in the show notes. And Mr. Ombrello, man, thank you for doing this again with me. And let's not wait too long to do it again. All right.
Hey, man, anytime. I love it.
All right, man. Peace.
All right. Take care.
My man, off the record
buddy.
now. Give me one second.
Yeah, cool.
Give me 1 second. Let me stop recording.